Assalamu alaikum to everyone. All praise and thanks are due to the Almighty who has allowed us to have this meeting. Thank you for coming on tonight or today, if you're in the US, for this very special conversation with Muslimahs Making History. My name is Reha and I'm a trustee for Muslimah Sports Association. Muslimah Sports Association was set up in 2014 with the intention of inspiring and empowering ethnically diverse women, especially those from a Muslim background. We do this through sports, participation, volunteering, and coaching. We are an award-winning charity, well recognized in the sports industry. Before I hand you over to my colleague Salma Qayyum, I would like to advise you that this session is being recorded and will be shared across our social media platforms. Thank you.
Hello and Assalamu alaikum. My name's Salma and I'm part of the MSA team. Today, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. If you've got any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat window and we'll try to get through as many as possible. Please keep those questions relevant. We'd also love to see you. So if you could keep your cameras on, that would be great. But remember to keep your microphones on mute. You may need to also select speaker view in order to see the speaker. If you're on social media, please hashtag Muslimah Making History and tag us Muslimah Sports Association. I'm now going to hand you over to our host for this evening, Hafiza Patel.
Thank you, Salma. Assalamu alaikum. So I welcome everybody to the first of what we hope will be one of many discussions with esteemed guests from the sports world. My name is Hafiza Patel. I am a trustee with MSA and I've been with MSA since its inception. In the next hour, I will be sharing with you some stories from three very exciting, groundbreaking, inspirational women. But before we do that, I am going to thank our trustees, our supporters and partners. Thank you very much to Model City, Laureus Sport for Good, Nike Made to Play, and the London Mayor's Office. But a special thank you to Samsoni, who's partnered us all the way through and helped make this happen today. Thank you. Okay, so today on the panel, we have three very inspirational women. First of all, we have our very own Yashmin Harun. She is founder and chair of Muslimah Sports Association. Her love for sports led her to establish the multi-award-winning Muslimah Sports Association. She's been instrumental in promoting more representation on sports boards, councils, and committees. She works closely with national governing bodies to bring more opportunities for Muslim and diverse women. She's a director at London FA, a non-director at British Fencing. She's a member of the FA's Asian Females in Football Working Group, and she's also vice chair for the British Asians in Sports and Physical Activity. In 2020, Yashmin was named in the Queen's New Year's Honours List and awarded a British Empire Medal for increasing diverse female representation in sports. Yashmin, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone.
Salam. Our next guest is the first British Muslim female world champion in Muay Thai kickboxing. She's now turned into a professional boxer. She wrote the autobiography Born Fighter, which is shortlisted as Sports Book of the Year by The Guardian, which is now being turned into a film. She carried the Olympic torch in 2012, which she presented to Her Majesty the Queen as an achiever for breaking down barriers. She's winner of Sports Personality of the Year and Inspiration Person of the Year. She plans to be world champion in professional boxing, a double world champion in disciplines which has never been done before. Her motto in life, it's not how many times you get knocked down, but how many times you can rise up. Welcome, Ruqsana. Lovely to see you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Alaikum. Can I just check, do we have Ibtihaj with us now? I know she was running a little bit late. Rachelle, do we? No?
I don't think she's joined yet, so maybe just need another 5 minutes. Sorry, yeah, she's on the West Coast time, so I think running a little bit behind, but I'll let you know when she joins.
No problem, that's fine. Okay. So if I move on to the questions that we've prepared for today, first of all, my question is about the journey that you've had here. If I start with you, Ruqsana, I know you've had an interesting journey getting here. You come from a very traditional Bengali background, which provided barriers for you to enter what is a very male-dominated world. Can you just tell us about your journey, about the challenges you have, and how you overcame those challenges? And what advice really could you give to our participants who are facing similar challenges today?
Sure. So obviously I was born and raised in East London. Ever since I could read, I was fascinated by martial arts. I've always been inspired by Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali. However, I was very conscious of the fact that I was a, very traditional Muslim, Bangladeshi female, and it was unheard of during those times that a young girl such as myself would go into a combat sport. So I kept the passion hidden for many years. I discovered it when I was around 17, 18, and joined the gym, and I would train religiously every Sunday. And I just completely fell in love with the fact that it just, allowed you to exercise discipline, focus, take responsibility. And yeah, I completely fell in love with it. And the challenges were difficult in terms of being a female in a male-dominated world, lack of sparring partners, financial, economical challenges, and just being a young girl where it's unheard of to walk into a gym where it's just there's no female coaches. It was difficult in that sense because I was battling with both my roots, my religion, my values, and the traditions that I've been brought up with. So it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that, let's separate everything. The sport itself gives me so much, and I've learned so much from it that I can take away, and it's been a positive output for me. And the advice I'd give to others is that always have self-belief, because I started doing something as a hobby, and one thing led to another. And I guess for me, I was able to bridge the gap between Eastern and Western philosophy. And once I was at peace with that and in harmony, I was so much more content, and I was able to excel in the sport.
That's lovely. That's great. We do have, participants in similar positions who are finding it challenging to get into that world, and it's really what could you tell them? What do they need to do? Which is really inspiring to hear. Really, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So my advice would be, obviously, I myself run a ladies only class at the gym that I train at in London. And I think it's so important to facilitate for the Muslim community, for ethnic minorities and women who just want to feel safe and build their confidence, because not everyone can just walk into a normal gym and participate because of, the weight difference. There's, you can't train with men who have a lot more power and strength. So sometimes you just need to build your confidence, find your feet in the sport, look for maybe, for me, this is why I run my women's group, because, I knew how difficult it was for me starting out, and I knew it would have made all the difference had there been a female instructor where I would have felt safe and I would have been able to confront my parents and reveal that to them. So yeah, I think initially just start off, join a group that you feel comfortable with. That will help you gain confidence. It would help you feel part of a unity. The lessons you'll gain will pay dividends.
Great, thank you. Yes, if I ask you your journey, I mean, I know your journey, and really it's about how you've kept going in those days when it was really challenging to get MSA up and running and operational. Could you share that journey with us?
Yeah, when I first started MSA, and if I reflect upon the journey that I had, I think MSA has come so far, and the vision and inspiration that I wanted to achieve, we're slowly getting there. You know, I wanted to become a footballer, 100-meter athlete, but unfortunately there was nobody in the industry that looked like me, that represented me. So it was something that I had to stop doing at the age of 16 as soon as I stopped school. So when I started MSA, I just wanted to create a space for women and give them an opportunity to play sports. I wanted these women to then become the role models to the people around them. And what was fascinating for me to see is their journey from how they were when they first joined us to then seeing their confidence grow and become coaches and volunteers with us. So a lot of these women are not only participants, they actually now volunteer and coach with us too. So it's really good to see that journey, that individual journey for them. But it wasn't without challenges for us. I mean, for myself, I needed to engage the community and change their mindsets, because initially it was just me, the coach, and Hafifa, who was at basketball. And for many months, it wasn't anybody turning up. There wasn't anybody turning up. So it was really difficult to get the ladies to change their mindset, to get that time to invest in themselves, to make them understand that it's important to invest in themselves. And I wanted them to carry on and come and engage with us and understand the vision that we were trying to create, so that the next generation had someone that they could aspire to. Somebody like Ruqsana, somebody like Ibtihaj, somebody like myself, who are in the sports industry, who are advocating on their behalf too. So that was my really biggest challenge, was getting them to change their mindset and just investing that time in them as well. So it was, once they understood how important it was for the physical health and their mental health, they really started to invest back into MSA as well. So as I said, they became volunteers and coaches, and many of them reclaimed their identity. So they weren't just someone's mom or sister or daughter joining those sessions. They were their individual selves. They really enjoyed it. They created a sisterhood, which was really good for us as MSA. But the journey at the beginning was really difficult, just changing and gauging their input and them understanding us and what we were about. That was really important. So when I first came into the industry, obviously I'm from a banking industry, so I had no clue as to what the sports industry was. So I had to learn a lot about the whole industry, how to create relationships with stakeholders, who to work with, how to set up an association or a charity. I didn't know anything about the trustees or anything like that. So it was a whole new learning for me. It was a huge learning curve, but because I was really passionate and determined to create that space, to create that opportunity and empower my community, it kept me going. And with the support of the trustees and the MSA team, I think we've evolved over the years from just a physical activity or organization. We now give a holistic approach, because we do lots of positive mind workshops as well. So women are coming to us not only to keep their physical active health going, but also their mental health going as well. So it's been really a challenging but enjoyable journey for me.
Great, thank you, Yashmin. Great. Next, I want to ask a little bit about the support network that you have around you. I mean, I know something that we've learned at MSA is that journeys have a lot of people behind the scenes as well, who are helping you, supporting you, motivating you. And we wanted to remind our audience that they might not be the next Ibtihaj or Yashmin or Ruqsana, but really what they do behind the scenes, they could be influencing making that journey. So Ruqsana, if I start with you, who were your support network? Who were they and how did they help you?
It's quite difficult, because I think throughout my journey, I've had to be my own best friend. And if I reveal to people that I'm taking part in this sport, most people will say, why are you doing this? So I kept my sport quite secret to myself. And, I guess my sister would be my, biggest supporter, in the sense that she knew I was training, and if I needed emotional support, she was there for me. But other than that, it was very difficult because most people didn't quite understand how you would pursue a sport such as, you know, Muay Thai, kickboxing, especially because it's quite brutal. So in that sense, yeah, I think I would have to say my sister.
Oh, okay. I mean, you've been quite open about the difficulty that you've had, and we've seen, certainly with the pandemic, an increase in isolation and anxiety. What advice did you give participants with similar problems?
I think, you know, with anything in life, you have to just, you know, use lessons. You need to take lessons from adversity, and whatever you're facing, you need to find the positive and, you know, take that and turn it into a positive situation. So I just feel like every obstacle comes with a opportunity disguised there somewhere, and it tests your character, it tests you, and you end up evolving through that. So don't see it as a negative, use it to, you know, enhance yourself, elevate yourself, reach out to people, talk to people, and just, you know, your faith is a big part of growing, because I think a lot of adversity for me, I've been able to overcome because of the faith that I have, and, you know, being enthusiastic, having hope, and just, you know, being driven.
Yeah, well, this is nice to hear, actually. What about you, Yashmin? You do devote a lot of time to MSA. Who has been MSA support network?
So at the beginning, as I said before, it was completely new industry. So I had a lot of support from my family. It was like another full-time job because I had to learn a lot as well. But the industry support as well. So London Sport were big advocates of ours, county FAs, Sporting Equals, the Redbridge Active Team. They were all huge supporters of MSA because they knew what we were trying to achieve and who we were trying to engage with. I mean, they call our Muslim community women especially hard to reach. So from seeing our activities having success, they were keen to work with us as much as we were keen to work with them because we were engaging with that community. So national governing bodies were also really key with our support network. So British Fencing, we had the FA as well. And other key stakeholders and partners have they've been really key to the success of MSA. But I think the most important people have been the trustees, the coaches, the participants, of course, and the volunteers. Without them, MSA wouldn't exist. If they didn't continue to support us through our journey, then we wouldn't be able to offer them lots of different sports. And we do offer them lots of different sports, really in unconventional sports. So we do fencing, we do football, we're about to do archery with Barking Rugby Club. So, you know, our network and our offering is growing, which is really good to see. We've also had a good support network, obviously, from Laureus and Sam, who you mentioned before. They've been really big cheerleaders in our corner, advocating us throughout the industry. So that's been really good. And I think that we can't be an organization who's had this much success just doing it on ourselves. We've had to have that support and people advocating on our behalf throughout the whole industry. So if it's not our participants advocating to our community, then it's the leading sports industry, the stakeholders, the partners who have been advocating for us on that side as well. So we're still relatively small. We still only have 3 trustees running MSA, but I think the success that we've had, alhamdulillah, has been really good. And we are growing. There's a lot more demand for us now, especially during COVID, because we've been able to offer things online, and our reach has been as far as Malaysia, as far as Pakistan, even the north of England. So, you know, there is a demand for MSA out there, which is really good.
That's great. Thank you, Yashmin. And I think we've now, Ibtihaj has joined us. Am I right?
Hello.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. How nice to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, I will introduce Ibtihaj now. She is the first Muslim American woman in hijab to compete and win a medal for the US Olympic Games. She's an entrepreneur with a very successful clothing line for modest wear. She's an activist, New York Times bestseller best-selling author. Actually, my nieces were very pleased when they found out you were going to be on our panel today. Times Magazine has named her in their top 100 most influential people's list. Fantastic. Without doubt, an important figure in a large global discussion on equality and the importance of sports. Welcome, Ibtihaj. Lovely to see you.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. We wanted to ask you really about your journey, really to ask how the challenge you faced trying to get involved in a sports where there were not others that looked similar to you. Can you tell us about those challenges, what you've learned, and now what you can now share with our audience here today?
Well, I'm from the United States, and I guess in my family, culturally, sport is really important. So my parents put me in, you know, a wide range of sports from a really young age. Like I've played t-ball, I've tried tennis, I've run track. But for me, in each of those different sports, as a young person, even before I wore hijab, I didn't wear like the shorts that my teammates wore or the tank tops, like strapless tops. I would always spend time at sporting goods stores with my mom, trying to find like a sleeved shirt to go underneath the top, or trying to find like a pair of spandex to go underneath the team uniform. And at 12 years old, my mom and I were driving through our town in New Jersey, where I grew up, and we saw fencers for the first time. They had on long jackets and long pants, and they were, you know, what looked like fighting with swords. And even though at the time we were not familiar with the sport, it was something that my mom wanted me to try because the athletes were covered. And it was the first time in my life, honestly, as an athlete, where I could kind of abandon that idea or that feeling of not fitting in. It was the first time in my life where I was in uniform with my teammates and I really felt a part of the team. And even though I was one of the only people of color on my high school team growing up, and definitely the only kid in hijab at any competition I'd ever gone to, I didn't let that stop me from really, I would say, like learning the sport and wanting to get better. I've always been super competitive. I love the idea of sport and that you can work towards your goals. There's always room for growth. And with fencing, I feel like my trajectory has always gone in an upward motion because I've always been willing to put in the hard work. I learned, even as a professional athlete, that you can't allow other people to draw lines of expectation for you or allow them to make you feel as if you don't belong. So really just learning to champion yourself, be your own cheerleader, and kind of walk or, you know, fence to the beat of your own drum. I feel like this journey has always been my own. And even when I qualified for my first Olympic team, I felt like it was something that I was able to do really for all of us. It was a way for Black kids, no matter where they're from, Muslim girls around the globe, to see themselves not just as fencers, but as professional athletes. And we don't need permission from other people to be great and to realize our own potential. It's something that we can gift ourselves.
That's great, amazing. Ibtihaj, what about your support network? We know you're a role model and you're also a Laureus ambassador. What support did you receive when, and why do you want to give this back to the community now?
Well, at 16 years old, I was at a local competition, and there was a parent of another athlete, a white parent, who told me that there were Black fencers who fenced in New York City. I remember at the time, because I was a kid, I felt hurt, you know, in a way that I was being acknowledged for my skin color and looking different from my competitors. But at the same time, I wanted to know where could I find people who look like me who fenced? I thought that was really cool. And that's when I first heard about the Peter Westbrook Foundation, which is a foundation I joined again at 16 and I'm still a part of now. There are about 200 kids who learn how to fence any given Saturday in New York City before COVID. And it was the first time in my life I had seen that many minorities in one space, all learning, or like all fencing. And what was really cool about the foundation is that these groups of kids that are learning how to fence, you know, those 200 kids are broken up into groups by weapon and ability. Each of those groups are led by an Olympian or a world champion or a world medalist or a national team member, someone who has achieved a lot in the sport. And I think in seeing that for the first time, it allowed me to see myself in the sport long term, even if it was an unconscious thought of mine. I didn't know that you could fence after college. I didn't know that I would ever, you know, become a professional athlete in this sport, but this nonprofit really helped me realize my own potential, not just by supporting me mentally, but also supporting me financially. In the United States, you know, it's hard to participate in these really these smaller sports in a way that you find in neighborhoods that have higher tax brackets. It's expensive. And if you come from a working class family, it's not always a reality to be involved in a sport like fencing. But this foundation really subsidized my career, not just as a young person, but also as a professional athlete. And it's helped me understand how important nonprofit work is. And it really helps level the playing field for underserved communities to participate in a sport like fencing.
Thanks, Ibtihaj. It's really interesting. My final set of questions to my panel is around dedication. You don't get to the level that you are now without lots and lots of dedication. So if I ask Ruqsana first, you obviously train really hard. I've actually seen some of the training regimes that you put yourself through. That dedication to keep on winning, what does it look like? What does it mean? What does it entail?
Such a great question. First of all, I'd like to say I'm in complete awe of Ibtihaj, such an inspiration. I follow her on Instagram and I absolutely, honestly, she is a true inspiration. So, you know, I'm honored to be on this panel alongside her. In terms of dedication, I think it's incredibly difficult because you're constantly faced with adversity, being a woman, being ethnic minority, being Muslim, being petite because I'm quite small. And then to go against the grain and constantly prove everyone wrong, whether it's my coaches, my peers, society in general, my community. I think it's a sheer belief within myself. And that's something I think I received through my faith. And even though I don't wear a hijab myself, one of the things that's helped me throughout my journey is my trust in God. Every time I, walk into the ring, it's one of the most scariest things for me, but it's the prayer that calms me down. It's the prayer and knowing that God's close to me. This is why I love sport so much, because it challenges you in such a way that you're completely out of your depth, completely, reliance of God's protection, God's mercy. And this is what I feel like for me, it goes hand in hand. It makes me a better person, it makes me a better Muslim, it makes me a better daughter, because I have so much respect for everyone else around me, like my family, and the fact that I'm so privileged to be able to find a passion in my life and follow my dreams. And of course, sport and religion, I feel like there's so many parallels. It teaches you focus, it teaches you self-respect, it teaches you values that are so similar in terms of breaking down racism, unifying people, and it's more about the commonalities and life skills rather than the differences that society portrays.
Yeah, it's true, actually. Very true. Yashmin, if I go to you next, when I introduced you, I talked about all the different hats that you wear, the representation of all the different boards and committees. What keeps you dedicated? What keeps you going?
I think, as I said before, that seeing the progress of the women, from being those participants that doesn't know anything about the sport that they've come into, and then seeing them grow in confidence, that's kept me going. Also, you know, like any organization, building it up, it takes a lot of dedication. So it meant a lot of time away from my family. But because I was so passionate in making my vision a reality, I kept going. Even when people said to me, you know, it's time to focus on your family. You've brought it so far, so, you know, hand it over to somebody else. There's nothing more you can really do with the organization. I've kept going because I'm really passionate about creating these safe options for women from our community, because they do feel safe in our environment. They do feel safe in an all-female environment where the coach understands where their culture is, what their heritage is. They don't have to leave their heritage, their culture or religion at the door. They can come in and enjoy themselves, and just be themselves for that next hour or two, enjoying the sports that they play. So that is my dedication, because they want me to keep going. That keeps me going as well. And as a director, I think within these organizations, it's important for me that I influence policy and strategy, so that we do have those opportunities, that they understand the community that they're trying to engage with. So in terms of working with Muslim women, what is it, the barriers that they face, how can we make it easier for them to engage in sports? So British fencing, county football as well, they've been really good in trying to really understand what it is that the barriers that we face. And what makes it more accessible for us to be playing sports on a level playing field as well. So removing those barriers and bringing people to the table to get their voices heard. That's what I like to do. I bring people into sort of committees, whether it's on the board level, whether it's just committees, whether they're getting their voices heard throughout the media. So whenever we've been asked to do an article or a TV interview, then I ask my participants to go for it, because it's their lived experiences that will connect with the audiences. Their lived experiences will shine through what it is that the barriers that they've faced in life in getting to this stage of playing sports, because many of these ladies didn't have the opportunity to play sports before MSA started. You know, some of them had never tried footballs, a lot of them have never tried fencing, a lot of them have never tried boxing, but because MSA was able to create those spaces for them, they were able to you know, we now have a 5-side team playing tonight, actually, over at Mabley Green in Hackney. We have fencing coaches because we were able to create that space for them. We're doing an archery coaching course soon, so they'll be able to do the archery soon. So it's that sort of dedication, and to bring MSA so far has taken a lot of investment from me personally, but I've so much enjoyed it.
Excellent, thank you, Yashmin. It's fun, and the best bit is the feedback we get, isn't it, when we try to put these events on. That's
definitely, yeah.
Ibtihaj, we've got many young fencers in the audience today. Can you talk to them and tell them what hard work and education looks like? Tell us about your training regime and how, what dedication particularly do you need to become an Olympic champion?
Well, I would definitely encourage everyone in the audience to have fun. I think that Yashmin hit the nail on the head when, you know, she said that a lot of the work she does is helping our girls feel comfortable in participating in sport. When we create spaces, and whether that means us speaking to, you know, other Muslim girls and other Muslim women and helping them feel comfortable, but I also think it means speaking to people who may not look like us, and really forcing this idea of representation and inclusion. So number one is to have fun. When I was a kid, I was not thinking about the Olympics ever. Like, it never crossed my mind. And I think when you kind of abandon those really high, lofty goals, you are able to have fun and just work hard and try to get better. But when I think about dedication and hard work, I honestly feel like those characteristics are just a part of who I am. I've always loved the idea of working hard for what I want. And the great thing about sport is that you get out of it what you put into it. It's like a test, right? If you have a really big exam at school and you want to do well, you don't just show up on exam day and expect, an A. When it comes to sport, it's kind of the same thing. You think of every single competition as a test, and the practices that you have, that's the studying, that's you putting in the work, you putting in the time in order to get better. So really small things you can do for yourself is maybe say, okay, I have a tournament that's a month out. I want to do really well at the competition, or even set smaller ones. Like I have a particular action that I want to build on and I want to become better at. So let me make sure every single day I'm putting in the time and effort towards perfecting that particular action. And then I think the chips kind of fall in place. I was able to, you know, build from doing well at local competitions to doing well at national competitions to getting into a good university. When I graduated from college, I decided I wanted to qualify for US national team. What did that look like? Having my parents help me pay for World Cups, number one, but really starting at the bottom. I was, I think, ranked 220th at my first international competition. So I went from ranked 220th in like 2008, 2009 to world number 7. And it does not happen overnight. So please do not put pressure on yourself to go to the Olympic Games. This is about having fun, enjoying the time with your friends, and really just learning about yourself. And if you want to get better, you have to know that you have to put in the time and you have to put in the work. We're not all Serena. We're not all LeBron. That's the reality. But know that athletes like that who achieve that level of success, they are working so hard. Like it's hard to put it into words. But when I think about myself and my Olympic journey, I wanted to be successful in sport. I wanted to qualify for an Olympic team almost more than I wanted to breathe. I know that sounds crazy to other people, but I always say like there's a fine line between Olympian and crazy, and we're like somewhere in the middle. So just have fun.
Great message. Thank you, Ibtihaj. I'm conscious there's loads of messages in the chat. What I'll do is hand over to Reha and Salma, who'll talk us through some of those questions.
Assalamualaikum. Sorry, I'm a little bit starstruck, so I might be not making much sense. Assalamualaikum, Ibtihaj. Welcome. We have loads of questions for you. The first one, I'm going to go straight to a very dedicated fan of yours who actually took up fencing because of you. She's read all your books, she's copying all your steps, and you really are a true role model for her. She actually says she wants to grow up and be just like you. So I'm going to give her this honor to ask this question of hers to you directly. So Sumaya Rashid, when you're ready. Well, I try not to stare at Ibtihaj. You can unmute yourself and ask.
Alaikum Ibtihaj. I just like to say thank you for being such an inspiring role model. I mean, as Reha just said, you inspired me to get into fencing, and I just tried to emulate you. You are such an amazing person. So I'm going to go straight to my question. So as a fencer, I find that like during a match, I tend to use moments of calm to strategize. And I've watched some of your matches like from Rio, and like you leave really quickly. It's unreal. And during your matches, I just wanted to ask, how much of your response to your opponent's moves are like based on prepared analysis of like your opponent's fencing style, and like how much is just instinctual from like lots and lots of practice?
First of all, I would just like to say that you are far too kind, Sumaya. I don't even know what to say. I love that you are fencing. I hope that we get more Muslim girls who look like us in the sport. I think fencing is such a great sport. Your question is so fencing specific, and it's interesting because I think that you honestly have almost like answered your own question, and that I do think that fencing is twofold, at least for me. I am a planner, so when I first started on the fencing circuit in 2008, 2009, I got a notebook that had it's a leather notebook. It had Olympic rings at the bottom, said USA on it. And I knew that I wanted to go to the Olympics one day. I didn't know how I was going to make it happen, being ranked 220th in the world, but I was like, this is going to happen. And in that notebook, I started to track every single athlete that I fenced, like whether it was a camp, like a camp in Poland or in Germany, whether it was a competition in Italy or in China. I was writing down every single athlete that I fenced. Once I made my first team, I was tracking like every single team competition. So like all the Chinese fencers, all the German fencers, all the Hungarian fencers. And I knew every fencer's style, what their strengths were, what their weaknesses were. And so I'm able to take that into every match that I fence. But to the second part of your question, whether or not the bout is ever instinctual, part of my fencing style is definitely fencing on instinct. I think I kind of thrive on being a bit more athletic than other people or faster. And I've always had a really good sense of timing. So I can time out my opponents just by getting one light action. So if you saw my matches at the Olympics, that's what a lot of my dominant actions are. And I think that comes from starting in épée for 3 years and then switching to saber. So I think that you're on the right track. I think you've answered your own question in terms of you planning, like really studying your opponents before a match, but then also trusting your instinct, trusting all the hard work that you've put into building and preparing yourself for that moment.
Okay, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
So Sumaya actually started in one of our social fencing classes, and she loved it. Her and her friend loved it so much that they found a club that they wanted to join. So Newham Swords, I think, is yours, isn't it, Sumaya?
Yeah.
So they, you know, you've really inspired Sumaya so much, and she's. When we said that we've got Ibtihaj coming onto this event tonight, she could not contain herself, and we had to ask her to keep it a secret. Yes,
well, I'm happy. I
made her day, definitely.
No, inshallah, we get a chance to meet in person.
Inshallah, that would be amazing.
Salma, do you have a question from you?
Yes, so I'm going to start off with my question to Ruqsana. I've been sort of, Instagram stalking you. Let me be serious. But I'd love to know, like, what's the other side of Ruqsana? When the boxing gloves are off, what's the other side of you?
Do you know what? I think similar to what Ibtihaj was saying is that even though you're training, all your focus goes into, your rehab, your downtime, your whole world revolves around training and making sure you're performing at your best. So my life, there's so many, I don't feel like a sacrifice, but everyone else, when I speak to my friends, my family, they feel like it is a sacrifice because I can't go out and eat with, my family. I can't do family meals because I have to be constantly in a diet. So there's so many things that I have to, my whole lifestyle revolves around my training. So that's where the discipline and the focus comes in. I guess the other side of me is that I really, truly love what I do. And I feel so blessed that I've got something that, propels me forward and gives me that closeness to God, because I feel like through my sport and the adversities and the challenges that I face, it brings me closer to Allah. And even though I'm not fully I'm not practicing with my hijab and everything on, but I feel like the roots, the belief, the self-belief, all of that, the inspiration comes from God. And I did, I feel like my life changed when I went to Umrah, and that's when I felt like, because I was in so much conflict with this sport and whether it was allowed in our religion to participate in a combat sport where I'm actually hurting someone. So I had so much inner conflict for many, many years. And I think once I went to Umrah and had had an honest chat with God, and I said, look, I'm happy to give it up now. Please advise me and give me the strength to move on and replace it with something better. And in fact, I actually said to God, and I said, if it means I'm going to write a book and I'm going to earn a halal means through my book, let me be content with that. And I came back and my life just changed. I got my book deal and I got signed by David Hay. And I think it's all about patience and prayer. And there is so many sacrifices. But in that sacrifice, there's so many blessings. There's so much growth, and that closeness to God. That's what I truly enjoy, because there's so many lonely moments in sport. And that's where I feel like I'm connecting to God. And that's what really inspires me to continue, because I see my younger niece, I see the next generation, like Samia. It's amazing. Like, you don't have to compromise on your faith, you don't have to compromise on your belief, and you can still excel in sport. And that's what I truly feel, you know, passionate and motivated by, to be an advocate. And it's amazing what you guys are doing. So thank you for, you know, the work that you're carrying on and how you're impacting the next generation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is back to Ibtihaj. I'm actually going to ask my fellow coach, Mercedes, to unmute herself and ask this next question. Mercedes is a fencing coach herself, and she's very graceful and she's amazing to fence against. So when you're ready, Mercedes, over to you.
Hi, I just had to run off and put a hoodie on quickly because I was on camera. But I just have a question for Ibtihaj. Yeah, kind of like everyone else was saying, like, I've kind of been following your career as well, and you're super inspirational. I've read like your biography and stuff. And I'm kind of at the stage where I'm at university. I've kind of taken a step back from fencing. So I just kind of wanted to ask, like, how did you kind of get back into that competitive mindset and in kind of the circuit and stuff after having a break whilst you were at college?
Well, I just, Mercedes, before I answer your question, I just want to acknowledge what Ruqsana has said. I think that it's so important, and I just want to like drive that point home, that you do not have to compromise any part of yourself. You do not have to abandon any part of your faith. I think that becoming closer to my faith, and like Ruqsana said, sport can be very lonely. And I think that my faith, especially when I was on the road and traveling to different countries, often alone and feeling alone, my faith is what kept me grounded. It helped keep me connected to like my family and the things that are close to my heart. And I guess to answer your question, Mercedes, about when you do walk away from sport and you find it to be temporary, you read my autobiography. I did not compete my last year at university. I decided to get back into sport because I think I missed the training. I missed being in shape. And that was my initial idea. But when I saw that the US national team had never had a woman of color, had never had, someone Black, had never had a Muslim woman at all, Team USA at all, to me, I felt like that was my calling at that moment. Like I had to do it. I had to see if it was possible, because I wanted to see just the team as diverse as it was in my mind. When I realized that there had never been a woman of color, I saw that as a problem. And to get to, I guess, answer your question, like, how do you get back into it? It's like riding a bike. Don't feel nervous. Don't feel guilty about taking a break. Breaks are okay. Sometimes you need them, whether it's to focus on your academics or family life or whatever it is, your spirituality. And I find that breaks are important. I don't think that you should feel guilty about that. If it's meant to come back into your life, it will. And it honestly is like riding a bike. It'll feel like you never left. Like, I feel like I could hop on the fencing strip right now and beat someone, because I just feel like fencing is like riding a bike, and when you have it, you have it.
Thank you. That's like made me feel really good about potentially doing fencing in the future again.
And love the hoodie that you chose. I love it.
I've got another question here from Ross Crawford. I'm assuming it's for all three of the panel members. So he says, how important is it to connect with people who've been through or are going through similar challenges?
Who do you want to ask that to first, Sal?
I'll start with Yashmin then.
So connecting with our community is so important, I think, because we have those lived experiences. We know the challenges that they face. So when we are creating a safe space for them to try these different sports, we know what will get them to come in and join us at MSA or any other sport. So it's really important that we understand the community that we're trying to engage with, and have someone that is advocating on their behalf as well. So, for example, now myself, I go out and advocate within the sports industry at networking events. I'm involved in consultations because I want to advocate on their behalf. I think that's so important. Unless you have someone with lived experiences telling the story, these industries will never change, the narrative will never change. So it's really important that we do understand the communities, and the sports industries make that step into understanding that community they want to engage with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Ruqsana? So
I think with me, I've always believed that, you know, Muslims come in all, you know, different mannerism, and, you know, whether you wear a hijab or not. And it's, you know, it's beautiful that we've got more sisters who are at elite level who are wearing a hijab, and it's more acceptable, and the younger generation can aspire towards them. But nevertheless, I feel like it's, you know, I battled with that growing up, where I wanted to compete in boxing, and they, you know, you have to be in your uniform. And growing up as a strict Muslim, you know, I knew my parents would never allow me to wear a pair of shorts and, you know, compete at the World Championships. So it was a huge, huge struggle. And in fact, I remember I was in Russia once and I had my leggings on, and then I wore my shorts, and they said they'll disqualify me if I don't take my leggings off. And I'm literally on ringside. My coach had to pull off my shorts and put my legging off, and then put me back in the ring. And I thought, this is so sad that we are not accommodating Muslim athletes. And it just, you know, for me, it was a moment of, well, the next day Morocco was fighting, and in that case they had to change the rules because they're not going to send the whole country back to, you know, Morocco in regards to this competition. So I think it takes these bold steps and awareness and talking about and saying, look, I'm not prepared to compromise on my beliefs. We need to all stand together, and this kind of awareness is so important to say it should be about your talent. It should be about what you deliver. For me, it's about delivering in the ring rather than my dress code and my color and my ethnicities. And so many times I feel like, you know, my coach said it to me, don't live in the judge's hands, because so many times I feel discriminated against because I'm not the right tone and the right, you know, I'm British, I'm not from Russia, for example. And if the competitions are held in certain countries, you're discriminated in so many levels. And I feel like I'm a strong believer of never compromise on your beliefs, and that is what's going to excel you, because once you have integrity, people respect people with integrity, and that's where I would draw my strength from.
yeah, that's extremely difficult as well, isn't it? Really difficult things to sort of overcome. So yeah, well done to you. Ibtihaj, if I ask you that same question, how important is it to connect with people who've been through or going through similar challenges to you?
I think that Ruqsana brings up a really good point in that when you're faced with difficult moments, like as women who are, you know, ethnic minorities, religious minorities, we know exactly what discrimination looks like. And for us, it's discrimination in the workplace as athletes. Like it's something that we're unfortunately very familiar to. But when you make that decision to be authentic to yourself, to be unapologetic about who you are, and you allow your skill to kind of show up, and I feel like people don't have a choice but to respect that. And even though as professional athletes, we still see it, especially when you go to particular countries and you have countries that are favored or athletes that are favored. I think it's really funny that Ruqsana has mentioned Russia, because we have the exact same thing in fencing. It's not always easy mentally, but I always say that no one can stand in the way of something that is written for you. Yeah. And when I really learned to incorporate that into my belief system in a day-to-day practice, to say that no matter what the national coach or my teammates have in mind, whatever obstacle they throw in front of me, what Allah has meant for me is not going to miss me. And I felt like later in my career, I really leaned on that. And I was able to just kind of abandon that stress of the bigotry and discrimination that I was facing, even like on home soil, things that I was facing in the US from my national governing body, from other athletes. I just honestly stopped caring. And when I think about asking other people for advice and people who had gone through what I've gone through, I think two things. One, I've always looked at someone like Muhammad Ali. I've always looked at someone like him as he was able to put his Islam first no matter what. And that meant standing up for people who were thousands and thousands of miles away from him by saying that I'm not going to go and fight against people who are facing the very same oppression that my people face. He stood in his convictions. He stood on his moral and his religious convictions, and he faced so many things that were a lot harder than athletes like me or athletes like Ruqsana will ever face. So when I think of historical people, especially Black athletes who have faced a lot of discrimination in the United States, if they can face that and they can survive and they can push through, then what I'm experiencing is light work. And there is an athlete that when I didn't qualify for my first Olympic team in 2012, I realized that as an athlete who was coming from a community that did not have the same access and opportunity as my teammates, I needed to find out from someone who had done it before, okay, what's the blueprint? What do I need to do in order to make sure I make the next Olympic team? So I think that making sure you ask the right questions, making sure you understand the full picture. Sometimes it's not always offered to people who look like us. You have to make sure you ask the right questions and you really understand what's at stake and how to make sure you attain your goal the next time.
Thank you. There's so much courage that sort of comes through your answers. So thank you so much for that. Reha, do you have any more questions?
Oh yes, I have loads. I'm spoiled for choice. I don't know what to ask. I will take this one from 6-year-old Amina, and she wants to know from Ibtihaj, how old were you when you started taking an interest in sports and doing sports?
When I think of sport, I don't know if I always think of it as like organized sport. I think of myself as a really young person playing in the backyard with my siblings. Like we grew up always being outside, especially when weather was permitting. We were always in the yard. In our family, you came inside when the street lights came on. So we were swimming, we were playing football, we played a lot of basketball, we played tag. We just were always super active. And also in our family, like my parents always put us in like town recreational sports. So I did try t-ball, I did try tennis, you know, like I ran track, just these different things to kind of keep us active. So I think if you're 6 and you're involved in sport, you are on the right track.
You got that, Mina? Okay, I'm going to go straight into the next question, if that's okay. A question from Iram here. She says, self-belief is really important to help you achieve success. It's something which you can increase or decrease. What do you do to continue to nurture your self-belief? The question is, what do you do to continue to nurture your self-belief?
Can I answer that?
Okay, we'll let Ruqsana take this one and we'll come back to it.
Oh, sorry. No,
that's fine. Ruqsana, go
ahead. This is such a great question because, you know, you can only sit on your achievements for so long. And in order to grow, you need to constantly fail and not see failure as failure, to see it as a step forward towards the right direction. And for me, you know, I have to put myself in uncomfortable situations where I can gain confidence, and every step has a hidden message there. that you can take and draw. And in fact, from my failures, I've learned the greatest lessons, because it's there to teach you something. So it's about mindset, it's about acquiring knowledge and constantly being courageous and having faith to move in the right direction. Just because you haven't been able to achieve it the first couple of attempts, it's not the end. The journey is there to test you. And, you know, there's a famous, example of Thomas Edison, where he invented the light bulb, and he made like 10,000 attempts until he actually got there. So for me, this is what it takes. It's about perseverance. You have to constantly strive, and failure is part of the game. Unfortunately, failure is part of success. So it's so important to move and fall in the, fall forwards in order to get to where you are.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And same question.
Yeah, I also, I think that don't be fooled by like the smoke and mirrors that you may see on social media, or you may see your favorite athlete like on a podium or winning some championship. Doubt is totally normal. That is a human emotion. We all experience it in our day-to-day lives. And I believe that you building up that notion of courage and self-care, that's something that you have to work on every single day. And I'm also speaking to myself. You have to remind yourself how strong you are, remind yourself of your potential, remind yourself that you are brave and that you can do anything and you can be anything. And it's something that we have to be kind to ourselves, like as kind as we attempt to be to other people, and that's a part of our faith. Is to, lead with kindness and lead with love. You have to do the same thing to and with yourself.
Oh, wow. Brilliant. Whilst we're here with Yashmin, can we have your thoughts on that as well, please?
Yeah, sorry, remind me of the question again.
The question
I'm just in awe of both their answers. I've forgotten the question.
What do you do? What do you do to continue to nurture your self-belief?
So through MSA, I've connected with so many sisters, and we call it a sisterhood, we call it a community, because we're constantly reminding each other of Allah's ways and the path to be on. So we nurture each other. We through a Positive Minds workshop, we send positive affirmations to each other each day. We have 2 book clubs that we've started during lockdown, and we study our Islamic texts as well, and then reflect upon that and how we can incorporate that into everyday life. So although I'm not involved in the actual book club, we do have a WhatsApp group, and I read all the comments and all the learnings from it. So it's really good for me, because I'm really busy, but this just takes me back to my roots. Like everyone has said, I take that time out to just study and reflect, how am I using my religion to impact my life and nurture my life, and how that reflects on how I run MSA as well. So it's really important to me that I incorporate our Islamic beliefs within the MSA. Obviously, we are open to all women, and all women feel comfortable coming and using the MSA activities. But we do run that ethos of Islamic values throughout the whole organization. And I think that's what we've learned through this pandemic, especially how important it is to reach out to sisters, to make sure they are feeling okay, that, we address their anxieties, their isolation, and we've helped a lot in that way as well.
We have, thank you very much. Next question, we'll go straight into, I'm conscious Ibtihaj might need to dash off, so I'm just going to try and get as many questions in there. What are your greatest ambitions for Muslim women in sport, Ibtihaj?
Sorry, Reha, just to say this will be the last one. We're running out of time.
All right, is this the last one? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, last one.
Sorry.
Okay. Can you repeat it?
Yeah. What are your greatest ambitions for Muslim women in sport? So it can be any sport or fencing.
Yeah. Well, I think that my answer to that question would be a bit broader. it's my hope that we all, think of ourselves as athletes. We have a duty religiously to take care of our bodies and to lead healthy lifestyles, not just physically, but also mentally. And I want everyone to be active. There's a lot of us, especially culturally, where being active, eating healthy becomes a part of our lives. When someone in our family, Allah forbid, becomes afflicted with an illness or a disease, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, family emergency, we all have to start to eat healthy and try to move. And I would love to see it become a cultural norm where all of our kids are involved in sport, particularly our girls, and being active just becomes more of a lifestyle. I'd love to see more Muslim women on the Olympic podium. I don't care what they look like, hijab or no hijab. I don't care what country they're from. I want all of our little girls to know that they can be successful in sport, that sport is a place for them. And we don't need permission from other people to tell us that we're great. It's something that we already know, and we're going to live up to that potential.
Oh, mashallah, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just so glad this isn't live. Otherwise, I'd just be staring at you the whole time. Oh, thank you so much for coming on. We've actually got so many questions for everyone, but we are short of time. And I think that's the last question. I'm going to have to hand it back to Hafiza.
Thank you, Reha. Thank you very much, everybody. So thank you, audience, for joining us today. Thank you to the MSA team and the Laureus team. But a real special thank you to our panel members today, Ruqsana, Begum, Ibtihaj, Mohammad, and Yashmin, Harun. Before you disappear, I will just ask you to leave one inspiring or empowering message to our audience, please. Let's start with you first, Ruqsana. An inspiring, empowering message.
For me, it's always been my motto. It's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you can rise back up. And I hope, to see more Muslim women participate in sport, whether it's for leisure or on a competitive level. Sport should, everyone should be able to access sport.
Great, thank you. Yashmin, if I ask you to go next.
Yeah, mine would be to create your own stories. Don't see each barrier as a challenge, and don't let existing narratives dictate what you can and what you cannot do. Faith is not a barrier, and sport should be for all as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Yashmin. Alhamdulillah. And Ibtihaj, final word from you.
Oh man, I love what both Ruqsana and Yashmin have both said. I believe that we have everything we need to be successful already inside of us. You don't need your friend, your family, your parents, grandparents. You don't need anyone to tell you you're amazing. I'm here to tell you that you are. You have to remember to tell yourself that you are great. And just always remember to put your faith before your fears.
Alhamdulillah. What a lovely message from all three of you. It's been a lovely evening. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Good night and stay safe. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.